Welcome to my parlor. Hi, I'm Priscilla Andrews from Prairie Parlor, and today, in cooperation with tinypandora.com, I'm bringing you a tutorial on how to pack a cane. I'm not going to show you how to make a cane, the Skinner blends, the flowers, the pretty parts. I'm going to show you how to pack your cane in a way that doesn't distort it when you reduce it. I hope. Here's an example of a simple multi-purpose cane that I keep on hand that has lots of different components. But as you can see, they're different sizes and shapes. And if you pack it correctly, you can keep the shape in that cane that you want, like this little delphinium here. That's the thing, not packing your cane is the thing that causes the most distortion when you have a cane and you reduce it, in order to keep their shapes. Here again, we have a cane, translucent, that's daisies. And to keep that shape, it has to be packed very precisely. When you get that down on a solid background and keeping your shape when you reduce it, then you can more successfully move on to complex canes. Because the concept is the same. You're going to be packing the pieces of that cane in such a way that when you reduce it, all of your components maintain their shape and their size that you want them to make. So if you're interested in learning how to make something like this so that you can move on to something like this, come with me to the parlor and we'll get started. We're going to be using this cane as an example of how to pack something and then reduce it to keep its shape. Don't pay attention to this cane. I just grabbed a cane end and cut it up to make a flower out of it, because that's one that most people make, and the difficulty is in packing it and remaining or retaining its shape like this. So it's not about this, it's about this. And what I have here is extruded black clay, which I've chosen the color just to contrast with this so you can see better what I'm doing. And I have extruded all of these different shapes. We have a triangle shape, we have the octagon shape, then we have just round pieces that I've done with this disc, which is about the medium size, just round pieces. Then I have the small slit, I have a large slit, and on the bottom here I have some pieces of clay that I just extruded out to the setting number 3, the third thickest, with 0 being my thickest, and I cut the strips to approximately the same width as the cane, because that's probably going to be our finishing outer layer. Now I'm going to show you how we're going to pack this cane with these shapes to try and retain its shape when we reduce it. I'll be right back with my gloves on. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at the shape that I want to retain. And if you reduce this, everything gets distorted unless you fill in every space with something that's going to retain that shape. And just remember that every space that you leave when you're packing a cane is going to get filled in with something. And it's usually the cane that you don't want distorted. The first step is the cane that you work with should all be made of the same type of clay or the same hardness. This was made with Sculpey Soufflé, which is what I like when I make canes. And I am going to start by seeing if this triangle shape is going to fit in there and retain that shape. Now that looks pretty good, but we have an airspace right there. I don't know if you can see it or not. It doesn't quite fill in. So what I'm going to do here is see if one of these little round ones will fit down there. And sometimes I just use the back of my tissue blade and push it in. And that looks like that's going to fill that space up pretty well. Now I can take my triangle piece and fit that in there, and we no longer have an airspace there. So I'm going to fit that triangle piece in, trim it off, and that looks like that's going to work pretty well right there. All right, I have packed all but one section of the cane with the black and the triangle shape. And you think, well, there, that looks good, we should be done. And we aren't. And the reason is because if you just put a black strip around this now and started reducing it, you would end up with the tops of these flowers being flat, and you would end up with a square flower. So how do we keep that from happening? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add another cane end piece here, and I am going to put this into the last space just so I can have some more illustration here to show you how to pack around a cane and still keep its shape. But first I want to put a little black in there because this doesn't have a black border, and I just want to keep that contrast going. So I am going to wrap this, and then we'll have a nice black border on that orange leaf. Oh, it helps to use the right side of the blade, Priscilla. Silly girl. Now we have it pretty well wrapped. I'm not worried about that because I already have a black piece in there. So I'm going to stick this right in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to shape that in a little bit to a different shape so I can show you some more. But our problem right now is keeping that round shape on the top of those flowers. So what I'm going to do now is take an octagon shape, and I am going to place two of those with the one of the flat sides on the edge of that triangle that we just made. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow the top of that leaf to stay rounded, because if you look at the direction that we have this going, squeeze those together, it's going to allow that round piece to come up here. So I'm going to continue to go around here and place two of these octagon shapes upon the top of each of those triangles. Now I have each of those triangles with the black octagons on them, and I'm just going to firm that up a little bit, because what we're doing now is pushing the black down in between those petals so that they're going to maintain the pressure there and keep your petal shape. Now this leaf on the side, I'm going to take that and I'm just going to kind of curl it up a little bit, because this is going to be another detail that we're going to have to make sure we maintain our shape. Again, I'm going to take the triangle and I'm going to see that fits perfectly without putting anything else down there. So that's going to keep that shape there. Make sure it's firmed up on both sides. And now what to do there, because my triangle's too big to fit. But if we put the triangle in sideways, we still have a point that goes down there, and the flat side allows the leaf to maintain its shape coming up. So I'm going to take that triangle and push it down there. And there we have a base for that leaf so that it will maintain its shape. Next to the flower there. But we're not done, because we have a curved part up here, and we need to fill that in. And again, I'm going to use the octagon shape on the edge of the flower here so that it will still allow that flower petal to come up, but yet it will maintain the pressure on that part of the leaf. So now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking maybe another triangle would be good right here, because that octagon has a space under it that we need to fill. So I'm going to shove another triangle in there like that, because it follows the leaf right there. I'm just going to firm those up a bit here. And there are little tiny spaces there. But because I know the pressure areas are going to come from around and down, that I'm not too worried about those little spaces when you have black there, because it's going to fill in with black. So to keep this leaf shape going, I'm going to put another octagon here with the flat sides corresponding with the flat side of the triangle and the leaf. Bring that up. And now we're starting a shape that's going to be following the leaf. I'm going to continue with an octagon here, the flat sides staying with the other flat sides. And now I have this part of the leaf to fill in. And I think from looking at that space, another triangle would be good with the biggest part pushed on there. And there we have a nice space filled there again. You got to cut that end off. So we're following the shape of the leaf around and packing it where we want it to be packed. But now we have this flower here, flower petal, and by packing this shape like that, we're still allowing that flower petal to stay round right there. And to keep it round, what I'm going to do is just do a little more packing here. Get those points down, otherwise you'll end up with a point down in your flower. And I'm going to use some of the small round to put in there. Force it apart a little bit and see if that's enough. Looks like I'm going to need 2 of them. Whoops, wrong one. Force that apart a little bit and stick another one down in there. And if it won't go down, this is a handy dandy, actually I think it's a leather working tool or something, but this spatula shaped end just works great for me. There, it looks like we have some black in there, like that. So that's going to give a black border on that petal, but it's going to allow it to still come up like we want it to. But I still have a space there I need to fill. So if there's space for an octagon, and maybe I can force it apart a little bit, push that octagon in there. And now we have that packed pretty well so that the flower petal can still come up, but we have the leaf shape as it's curving. Now let's take a look at this and see if we have things going the way we want to. I think that looks pretty good. Now it's time to start packing around the petals in such a way that we start the black layer on top of them, but yet we still give them room to come up and maintain their round petal shape. So what I've done with that is I'm taking 2 of the short strips here, or the thinner strips, and I'm going to be laying them down on top of the petal. Now you might wonder why I use 2 of the thinner strips rather than 1 of the thicker strips when they're basically the same width. The reason is if we have a break in the clay here between those 2 strips, it's still going to allow the petal part of the top to come up as soon as we do the next step. I'm just pushing those down so that we fill the cracks there and get that black going on top of the petal, but still allows some movement up here when you reduce. Now, we can't layer it straight across there, because if you did, you would flatten your petal. So the next thing we're going to do is take our thin round strip, and we're going to lay 2 of those like so, because what's that going to do then is pack the pressure of your black when you start reducing on the edges, because we're going to have, I'm going to place 2 more on top of that and over to the side. I'll show you that in a minute. So I don't know if you can see that I laid 2, 1 over the top a little bit, because we're still guiding the pressure from that black around that petal, and we want more pressure on the edges than on the top. And I'm going to go ahead and lay another one to the inside of the first one that I laid. So now I have 3 on each side. Pack those in a little bit, and now I'm going to lay another one, the 4th, which on each side, which will be in between the 2nd and the 3rd one. And again, by doing that, I basically have a diamond shape of black strips there, and that's going to keep the pressure down on the sides of the petals. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to do that with each petal. I have each of those petals packed, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start firming things up, because as I push that black in, all those places that we built up by adding extra pieces on, even though it's going to be even and smooth on the outside when we're done, the inside is going to be packed very differently. Now to finish this leaf, which has got a kind of a curved shape there, let me show you if I get the stuff off around it. Okay, there's our leaf. I want the leaf to kind of curve around like that. And as I showed you before, look how well packed that is. It's maintaining its shape just like that. But to maintain that curl, I have to continue to pack it. So I have some space under where I want the leaf to curl, just a little bit of space. So I'm going to put one of the small round ones under that. And then I'm just going to finish by packing the black that's underneath that leaf to make sure that we have the pressure on the inside of the leaf so that it continues to curl around like I want it to. It's really kind of physics of motion is what a lot of this is, because everything will take the path of least resistance. So what you have to do to maintain your shapes is provide resistance for the design of the cane so that it turns out like you want it to. So here's your physics class for today. Now to finish that top off, I think I'm just going to continue to put some flat pieces on there, because even though they're flat, it'll round out as we reduce it. But I want it to be covered. So we've got that covered, and we've got the resistance on the inside. Like that. Now, when we reduce it to keep that shape on the inside, we're going to have to pack some more black. And when you start packing, I usually use the octagon shapes because they seem to fit so well with a lot of that. But here we go. See, we've got a space there. And I'm going to use a triangle because it's fitting in that space better than an octagon would. And as you do this, you'll get to the point where you can look at the space that you want to fill, and you'll be able to figure out what shape or how much clay you're going to use to get that shape to do what you want. I'm going to put another triangle right there because there was a crack there, and that piece of that triangle fits in very nicely. So now we've got some more cracks there, and oftentimes just taking a triangle and putting it upside down on top of a triangle that you already have fits really well right there. See how nice that fits? And that's giving us our resistance for that leaf when we start reducing this cane. And I've got a mess here. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to fill this black up with spaces, or fill with pieces that I have, so that we are at the point where we can start reducing this cane and see if I've just told you a bunch of baloney and it reduces okay, or if it works out and this ends up being a tutorial. I picked an odd shape for this, which is harder to reduce, but the only reason I did is because I wanted to show you how to pack another form besides just these petals. So I laid some of the thick strips that I have on the outside here. And what I'm going to do now, because I think I'm ready to start reducing, is just lay my long black strips that I had on the number 3 setting on my pasta machine to just smooth everything out and give it a final layer there. I'm going to add this strip, and we're going to cut it there. And I'm going to start reducing this. And I'm going to hope it comes out all right. So I'm going to be reducing this in kind of an egg shape. And I just start by putting pressure as evenly as I can all the way around. Because if we pack this correctly, the pressure that's being put on it as we reduce it should keep its shape. So here's Priscilla sitting here going, oh, please work, please work, please work, because they're going to think you're just full of baloney. So I'm going to work on this for a little bit, just putting even pressure all the way around, and I'm keeping the egg shape on this, but you would do the same if it was just round or square or triangle or whatever. Just even pressure all the way around. So I'm going to work on reducing this some more. Then we're going to cut the end and see if I really achieve my goal. Okay, a lot of people ask about reducing a cane, and that really is the important part. You can pack it all you want, but if you don't reduce it evenly, you're going to end up with a distorted cane. And I'm hoping I packed this or reduced it evenly by putting firm, even pressure as I pack it. The really neat thing that I like that helps when you reduce it is the tiny Pandora cane caps. So as I'm reducing this, I can put these cane caps on, which is what I did. I'm sorry, I forgot to show you that part. Because then what you do as you reduce it, this is going to show you what you need to do, where you need the pressure, and it's also going to keep those ends from coming out and giving you a whole bunch of cane leftovers. See, I have reduced this cane and to this size from the initial size, which was like this, and all I have left over from that as I cut it before I put the cane caps on was just a couple of these, rather than having that mountain of scraps that you usually end up with. So I can see the cane isn't as good as I'd want it to be, but I hope you get some idea with what I've done and what our final result is going to be. I ended up making it round and pulling that leaf over because it just kind of worked out that way. And see, because we packed the inside of that leaf, it keeps its nice curled shape like that. So that's an end. Drum roll, please. We're going to cut it and see if I did any good. So I'm going to cut this in the middle. I try to saw a motion because then it keeps from distorting the cane when you cut it. And there it is. Not too bad. Could have been better. It's kind of a hot day and my clay is sticky. But look at the nice delineation we have between the petals. They're all individual because we packed that black in there. They kept their round shape mostly on the top. And our leaf curled around just like I wanted it to. It's not perfect. And I could do better, I know. And you can keep manipulating it if you want to make it better. But I hope that gives you some idea on what you need to do with all of your different pieces on getting a cane put together and keeping the parts of your cane separate. I would like to mention that this was packing a cane that you want a single element in. If you want to pack a cane that comes up with a design like this one, you apply the very same principles, but with your different colored parts. Because if you want that shape to be maintained, when you reduce this into whatever shape you're going to, you just have to fill it with the other colors and parts that you would like in the cane. It's the very same concept, it's just different materials. Instead of packing it with this black, you're going to pack it with little pieces of complementary or whatever colors you want to put in there. Fill the spaces or you're going to lose your design. So, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.